Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, boys and girls, welcome back to the Investigative Journal. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and I'm reporting today from Tijuana, Mexico. Yes, I am. And I wanted to do this because I wanted to get the take from some Mexican citizens about this caravan coming up now again from Honduras. They say 10,000 strong or more. And I wanted to get the feeling from the Mexican people. But we have a lot on our plate today. We have to talk about Venezuela, and I want to talk about that from a perspective of two people I know from Venezuela that I've spoken to about this. One living there now, and another who has moved to Mexico because of the situation in Venezuela. Now, it's important to understand this story along with everything else on your plate in America today. We're looking at what happened today. Well, we have the government shutdown, which is a perfect example of what I try to tell you on this show. And that is, if you buy any of the American politics, if you take a side, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you're really making a big mistake. Because that's exactly what they want you to do. And every story out there today, and for the last couple of years, has been magnified by this chaotic fight between Make America Great Again. By the way, it's not a new slogan. It's been said by Clinton, by Reagan, etc. And then on the other side, we have the radicalization of the Democratic Party and this socialist push by a lot of these newcomers in Congress who are getting all the press about how America should turn into a socialist country. Free things for everything. And then you have to wonder, what really is going on? Why is this happening? I'm going to try to explain it. But before I do that, I wanted to go back a little bit, and there's a lot on our plate. We got to talk about the people here in Tijuana, which I'm going to get to. We're going to talk a little bit about Venezuela. We're also going to talk about the government shutdown and put it all in perspective and tell you why, if you fall into the category of a Democrat or Republican or even an independent thinking that you're going to change something in the government system of America, you are totally wrong. Because all of these people, it's pretty simple, work together. Yes, working together, taking different sides, fighting with each other, nothing gets done. Ask yourself one question. This government shutdown is there because one side, the Democrats, say they won't give Trump $5.9 billion to build the wall. Now, that's a drop in the bucket when you consider ours. It's a 0.8% of 1% of our total expenditures in Congress. And when you start looking at some of the crazy things they spend their money on, you start wondering. Now, we have to ask ourselves, Trump had the Republicans, the whole Republican Congress, the Senate, the House, and the White House for almost 2 years, right? And they didn't get it done then. Why didn't you just allocate 25 million, 10 million, 15 and get it done? Well, the Republicans stood in his way. It tells you this is an orchestrated effort. Everything that's going on right now, I believe, has been planned, including the arrest of another person involved in this special counsel adventure for the last 2 years, spending millions of dollars. They arrested a guy named Roger Stone today. And it's not involved. They were supposed to look into Trump collusion with Russia. Well, why aren't they looking into Hillary Clinton and her lying to Congress and all the people in her camp? Because there's a dual system of justice. They're trying to show you this right out in the open. Because the best way to ever tell you what they're doing is to just show it to you. There's an unequal system of justice. It doesn't exist anymore. If you have one political faction here controlling, which are the globalists, And then you look at the people who want to have a strong America, all of them following Trump, you're seeing that they're playing a game with you. So I recommend this. Before I get into any of these subjects, the show really is about one thing today. When did you ever decide not to give a damn or give a shit anymore? And if you haven't, then you're in trouble. And let me explain what I mean. I think it's important that you don't give a shit anymore. Because I'm telling you, then you will really understand who you really are. And that's the point. Now, for a long time, and I'm going to go back, for a long time, I didn't know who I was. I wanted to be a mainstream journalist. I wanted to be a mainstream actor. I wanted to be a mainstream lawyer. And I pursued those goals in that manner. For example, when I first started journalism, I could not stand the Republican Party. I fell prey to them because I was seeking to be just like them, to be just like all of the liberals during my period when I was growing up as a kid, maybe 21 and 22 years old, watching Ronald Reagan get elected president. And he's one of the reasons why I left America. I said, I'm not living in this country with him. So they were, because of my ideals, because I wanted to fit in. I made a huge mistake. I didn't really look deep enough to see really what they were doing, because they were doing the same thing back then as they're doing now. So I pursued this idea for a long time. I want to be a mainstream journalist. So I end up in Italy, and my goodness, did that change me a bit. But not totally. Because when I came back to America, after seeing all these Vatican intrigues and trying to piece together how the Vatican really works together with the governments of the world, it was still I was in a gray area. I saw corruption in the Vatican, and the time I was there was the huge Vatican bank scandal. So I saw it firsthand. Talked to people, understood. I mean, I had so many little, it's like little things bombarding you with information. Because as a journalist, I was still looking for answers within the system. I didn't understand who I really was. And so because of that, I made a lot of mistakes. And although at that time I was starting to get information, I started to see how the Vatican was corrupt in both their worshiping of Christ, which they don't. Then I was seeing how they work in the political system and all the corruption there, because I was there during that big, huge scandal. Seeing how these, and I'm not even talking about the pedophilia problem, but that's all related to this kind of pagan worship that goes on there, and how really the Pope and all of his people, the Vatican, the Jesuits, are really at the top of the pecking order here when it comes to, really thinking how to control one world, to be in one camp. And that's exactly where they're trying to go. And America is important because, one, we've been built up for one reason, and that's to be the military arm of the Vatican and of the New World Order. And secondly, America has to be brought into, let's just say, has to be destroyed, reworked, done over before this whole idea of a one world government can take place. I didn't understand that then. So I come back to America and I make another big mistake. I said, my goodness, I can't report on this stuff anymore. I mean, I tried to get a couple Vatican stories in, and they would not take them. No, so I said, I'm not going to go back and cover politics as usual. So I looked for other alternatives. I had gotten started in acting in Rome to make money. So I said, I'll pursue that, but I did it the wrong way. I wanted to be a mainstream actor. I wanted to get involved that way, and what was that? A big, huge error. Because that wasn't me. But the point is, what stage in your life are you at? Do you know who you are? Do you really understand if you really are on the outside of this Hegelian dialectic story going on in our country that's hitting us from every avenue? Do you know who you are? And that's the important thing. But at that point in my life, I didn't. And so then I said to myself, well, I had an interest in law. I think I'll get a law degree because I want to make money. Right. And plus, I was interested in certain things in the law, so I kind of blinded myself, but I wanted to be a mainstream lawyer. And you know what? Again, I didn't know who I was. But guess what happens? You know, right, maybe a few years before 9/11, I started to really think about it. And I got involved doing alternative things in the alternative media. The internet was growing up. Oh, by the way, I should mention to you, all of these little businesses. I owned a couple small newspapers. I wanted a small, to be, a mainstream publisher, but I couldn't afford anything but small papers. So I did. And boy, was that interesting. But again, it was a mistake. So I really want to tell you that back in my old life, so to speak, I wanted to do everything kind of in the mainstream. I want people to like, but I was doing everything the wrong way. I wasn't that kind of person deep down inside. I was always in trouble. I always was trying to go against the grain. I always wanted to do things against certain things. I mean, I can't get into some of the little things we used to do that were completely ridiculous. And so I'm thinking to myself, what kind of person really am I? So when I started to realize this whole story, it was pretty easy to make the jump into this kind of reporting, and that is to really get to the bottom of what's going on at the top. And to realize that to understand this story, you're going to have to put the Vatican agenda on the table. And so that's what I started doing. And at that point, I realized who I really was. And it's an amazing transition because once you do that, you get this attitude that you don't give a shit anymore. Let the chips fall where they may. I don't care. I look at what these people do now from both sides of the coin. I don't care what people say, about what we talk about here. I don't care what they do. The idea is to figure this out, and you can't do it unless you get that attitude. And if that's the kind of person you were from the beginning, it's easy. But if you're not, you're always going to be in one of their camps that they control. And the funny thing is, a lot of these people that never realize who they are, they climb the ladder and play the game on either the Democrat or liberal side, or they play it on the conservative side. And so nothing ever gets done. So as we look in 2019, we see the world kind of, I was watching it in 2000, since 9/11, let's start there. But if you look at what's going on today, all of these stories that I mentioned earlier, you'll get the idea that this march towards a new world order, which has been talked about for hundreds of years, it's actually an old world order, is really moving in a manner that is quicker than than it has in the past. And 2019 is a pretty good example. Now, in the second half hour, I'm going to talk about those stories that I mentioned. But I wanted to play something here. There's a guy that covers this from an angle of, he's kind of in the mainstream, kind of in the alternative. And he put out a video regarding the Economist Magazine cover 2019. So I thought I'd play that because it's a kind of a good example of, from his perspective, I thought, we'd look and see what's going on. Why did they put all of these signs and symbols on the cover? And I think that was the second cover because the first one was The world in 2019, it was completely black. Is that for the black papacy? Is that for the black nobility? Let's look and see. Okay, here we go. Let me see if I can get this up. And the title of this is The Economist 2019 Cover Explained. And it says, Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse and the Illuminati Symbols in that cover. Get it, look for, get the cover and look at it yourself. But here's what this gentleman had to say. And like I said, I don't know if he gives a damn or not, but let's listen.
Hey everybody, Christopher Green, Alternative Media Television. God bless each and every one of you tuning in. Jesus Christ is King. I've got a very interesting video today. I'm going to be talking about the brand new cover that The Economist put out. And this is not brand new news. It's been out for a couple of days, but I thought I would give you my take on all of this. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently today. I'm going to put an image up, and I'm going to talk about really what, from my perspective, I see. Of course, The Economist is kind of typified and is, I guess, famous for putting out warnings and future events against, what is the easiest way to hide something? Put it out in plain sight. You probably remember in 1988, I was 7 years old at the time, The Economist put out a magazine of the New World Order and the New World Currency that would soon come in the coming decades. Now, when you look at the image today, it's not that shocking, but you've got to keep in mind this came out in 1988. So it's very predictive programming in nature. It tells you what future events may potentially be like in the years and decades ahead. And of course, in 1988, The Economist magazine warned of a one world government and a digital one world currency. And we look at where we are today, of course, with the advent of digital currencies. The Federal Reserve worthless notes in our pockets, of course, are all digital. We're completely off the gold standard, etc. And now we have the advent of revolutionary breakthrough new technology in blockchain tech, cryptocurrencies, and it's all going digitally, just like it was predicted in 1988. So let's go to the 2019 cover right now, and let me set my phone to quiet mode, and then pull this image up for you. So let me go to this here real quick. We'll take a look at this. I'll bring it up on the screen. So we see the world in 2019. What is probably most striking about this at first glance is the reference to Leonardo da Vinci. And you can see here the very famous Vitruvian Man, who's wearing digital goggles, virtual reality, augmented reality goggles, and very much gives us this transhuman idea, this merger of man with machine, or machine with man. The singularity, this is what people like Ray Kurzweil, futurists, talk about as they're going to merge human beings biologically with machines. There's also a lot of predictive programming and rhetoric right now regarding Leonardo da Vinci because it's the 500-year anniversary, I believe, of his death. In fact, I'm even reading one of his books I picked up at the airport in some of our world travels called Leonardo da Vinci, by Walter Isaacson. So it's interesting that this is in the news right now. Okay, yes, there's the 500-year anniversary, but in addition to that, there's a reason they're putting this into the public predictive programming consciousness of the general public here in the United States of America and worldwide. So I think that that is something also to think about. Let me go back to this image here. So the first thing we notice is the Vitruvian Man, a very famous drawing by Leonardo da Vinci. Of course, he's wearing the goggles. In addition to that, he's got both of his arms extended. He's got 4 arms, technically, as they're showing this merger of man with machine. On his, what would be, from my perspective, right arm, you'll notice that he has a DNA strand, a DNA helix strand on his forearm, which, in my view, really is just kind of telling us how they're going to be altering our DNA, altering the human genome, altering human genetics. This is what people like to call the New World Order, their agenda, or the elites, or the banking cartel, or the central banksters, however you want to term it, those that are in control, those powerful people that sit on top of world economics and financial systems and control those strings. Also, as an extension of that forearm, in addition to that, he's holding a marijuana plant, which is interesting. That could tell us that marijuana, obviously it's being legalized in a lot of states. throughout the United States of America. Not only is it big business, it is making a lot of people multimillionaires. A lot of people are getting into it. For example, I was at a very fine steakhouse a couple of weeks ago, and the table next to me was talking about how they were thinking about getting into the marijuana trade and the marijuana business. So it's big business. In addition to that, I think they're making a reference to the fact that government-regulated, legalized marijuana can potentially alter your human genetics and your genetic code. It could be the equivalent. We can even think about this with vaccines as they give to children and they make them mandatory to attend government institutions like schools, etc. But the legalized government, non-natural marijuana strands could be used to pacify the general public, to dumb us down as they've been doing through vaccinations, in my view, also with manipulation of weather and all other poisons that they're putting into our bodies. For example, Johnson & Johnson just admitted, don't overcomplicate your trade.
Okay.
Hey guys,
so,
gals, my name is Jason Bond, and I'm the founder of Jason Bond Picks. Easy as good.
Okay, sorry about that. I lost that. Something just flashed onto my screen here. So I'm going to try to get this back up for you. Got a few minutes here in the break, before the break, so let me just play this.
Last week that they've known for over a decade that baby powder contained asbestos and was giving people cancer. So this is right all in front of all of our faces. This is the truth, and of course we're all being poisoned by the powers that be. They're even admitting it. This is what Johnson & Johnson admitted, and of course they will be facing a lot of legal troubles and fines for those people that are still alive, because most of the people that used the baby powder with asbestos are now dead and have died. So unless the families or the heirs decide to sue, there's really no financial repercussions for these giant Fortune 500 companies. So there's also the side of it that it's the pacification of the people. While the world is changing globally, geopolitically, while we have all these problems with immigration, etc., the spiritual war that we're engaged in, etc., the general dumbed-down peasantry, the general dumbed-down masses are being pacified by drug abuse, whether it's marijuana, alcohol, or even harder drugs. And in addition to that, he's holding, Leonardo the Vitruvian Man is holding a baseball. So this could signify a number of things. It could signify a false flag at a baseball event. It could also just signify the pacification and dumbing down of the general masses, and the fact that baseball is really no longer America's pastime. It's kind of changed, right? There's a historical context with baseball, but it's almost like it's losing out as the pastime of what it meant to be an American historically. So that's on the right side from my perspective, his right arm. On his left arm, just to stick with the Vitruvian Man, oh yeah, notice on his, right over his heart, there's hashtag Me Too. There's hashtag Me Too. So of course, that's an ongoing theme. There's no genders, everybody's genderless, and as Hollywood starlets pose on the red carpet wearing no clothes, basically buck naked, but at the same time they say, don't look at me, I feel uncomfortable, why are you objectifying me and sexualizing me? It makes me uncomfortable, while at the same time they're halfway naked on the red carpet, just kind of showing some context there, how ridiculous all this really is, and how Hollywood, Harvey Weinstein, for example, is pictured with many of these women smiling and singing his praises, and then in the next heartbeat are crying out, me too, me too, me too, me too. So I'm being a little bit cynical, and there's a word I'm looking for here, but it's showing, I can't think of the word that I'm thinking of, the hypocrisy. It's showing the hypocrisy of that movement and how that's an ongoing theme of divide and conquer by the elites and the mainstream media to further divide us and to further just degrade our morality here in the United States of America, so we don't know which way is up and which way is down. And of course...
Okay, so I got to take a break here. I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about the people I met in Tijuana, as well as a couple of people from Venezuela about that situation, and maybe play a little bit more. If you can't listen to this, go to his website. Go the Economist 219 cover explained, and you can get the rest of it. And there's a lot of images on that cover. So back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app. for all of your mobile devices. Streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal. And I'm going to defer my discussions with people in Tijuana regarding this caravan coming now through Mexico and down into Tijuana, 10,000 strong. But let me do this Monday because I have a few other things I want to talk about, and I don't have time today. As well as they've just, well, you've heard that now there's a solution for 3 weeks for this government shutdown. And if Trump doesn't get his money for the wall, they'll shut it down again, or he'll use his emergency, national emergency powers and see how that goes. So let me talk about that stuff Monday, but I want to finish this, the story that I'm playing here, this video regarding the Economist 2019 cover explained. Here we go.
An occult thing. I'm going to get to the occult nature of this depiction here in a moment, but doing everything in reverse is very much it has a Satan influence, has an evil influence. And I'll get to that in a moment. Let's stick with this photo for now. So I'm now looking at the left arm of the Vitruvian Man on this 2019 cover. And we can also see in his left hand, he's got a cell phone. There's also a barcode on it, which if you scan, takes you to a particular page online of The Economist talking about Leonardo da Vinci, if he had visited us in the future from history past, what his perceptions would be of the current state of affairs worldwide and geopolitically. So he's holding the cell phone. Again, all of this is aimed to merge us with this technology, with these computers. This is what Elon Musk, by the way, is working on with his company Neuralink. And other companies are working on to merge the human biological system with the actual cerebral cortex and the brain. That's not my opinion, it's a fact. It's what they're doing with companies like Neuralink. So, of course, we're all chipped with the cell phones now, and soon what they're attempting to do, this is the mark of the beast, is chip your brain or your right hand so that you can't buy or sell without using the mark of the beast. Of course, this all has a biblical reference. In addition of that, he's also holding the scales of justice, which is...
Okay, what I want you to do is pull up this 2019 cover of The Economist, and you could get a better idea what he's talking about. So here we go.
It's interesting. He's got two different types of people on both sides. I can only guess which group is which group. And so in the coming years, and maybe in 2019, it'll be decided which group is more favorable than the others. This kind of led me to think about immigration and that war that we're fighting, the destruction of sovereign borders, and how it's racist, hate speech if you disagree with illegal immigration. Not legal immigration, but illegal immigration. So there's this war of country sovereignty, what we see in Europe with the Brexit, what we see here in the United States with illegal immigration coming over our borders, spewing over our borders from Mexico, etc. So you basically have the sovereign man on one side, at least in my view, versus illegal immigrants and George Soros' agenda to basically bring down sovereignty of nation states to integrate the New World Order system, what the 1988 cover told us was going to happen as part of the New World Order agenda that The Economist put out when I was a kid. Remember when that used to be a conspiracy theory? The New World Order was a conspiracy theory? Now it's just the literal agenda to bring down borders so that we're all borderless and we're all genderless, and it's a one-world totalitarian government. It's interesting how all this conspiracy becomes actual reality. So let me go to a couple different images here. Again, I could probably talk on this for a very long time. Notice that we have the Chinese panda bear sitting on top of the world very smugly. He kind of looks angry too. He's sitting on top of the world. And to the left of him, or to your right, we have Donald Trump, and they're doing a depiction, kind of a Leonardo depiction, almost in a comical way, showing where it's measuring his perfect hair, right? His poof of blonde dyed hair or whatnot. He's sitting there above in the sky, in space, and then you've got literally the panda bear. And keep in mind that the premier of China doesn't like to be referenced as poo, and then panda is also a symbol of China and their domination of the new global state of affairs. Of course, there's more millionaires in China than any other country in the world. China has become a new super power, a powerhouse worldwide. This is primarily America's #1 enemy behind Russia at this current moment. And notice how Vladimir Putin sits in the background behind the panda bear, which sits on top of the world, almost like an ally. So let me get into some of the occultism here. Notice that all the text is mere text. So if we look to the left of Putin, it says Putin's, I can't read the second word. Maybe you could, someone there could decipher what the second word is. But everything is written in mere script. Why? Well, that is occult in nature. Do everything backwards. Aleister Crowley, I think I'm saying his name correctly, talked a lot about this in Satanism and these kinds of things. From you want to write backwards, you want to walk backwards. Even a famous Roman emperor used to walk backwards holding a stone in the streets of Rome before the collapse of Rome. So it's got this occultist reference all over. Also, Leonardo da Vinci was left-handed, and so he wrote in mere script. So if you hold this image to a mirror right here, you can actually read the text because it's mirror script. That's how Leonardo da Vinci wrote with his left hand, so that he didn't smudge the lines of ink. I actually read this in this book. It's interesting, again, that they're pushing all of this right now. And again, it has a Satanist reference as well. This is what the occult do. This is what the evil doers do. They do everything backwards. They speak backwards. They listen to records, music backwards. This is how they are able to take on occultist, evil, Satanist type powers, which are very, very real if you understand the spiritual warfare we're engaged in right now, the biblical references, etc., how this is very, very real. And there's a war for our hearts, minds, and of course, souls. Also, which is what is stunning and very scary about this piece, is right below Vladimir Putin, down towards the, I'll call it southwest of Mr. Putin of Russia, we've got the 4 apocalyptic horsemen, which is very, very scary. So what are they predicting here? Armageddon? And you've got the harvester of death on the, I guess, my left side and the right side from their perspective, holding the harvesting tool. I can't think of what that tool necessarily is called right now. Help me out with that. But that is the harvesting of death, right? That is death on the horses. And this is also references, the Bible references Revelation. It references what is coming to the world as is kingdoms and nation states bring us to Armageddon and the end of times, which we are living in right now. Notice that the third Armageddon apocalyptic horse rider to my left is Lady Liberty. Okay, you can see her there clearly holding the sword. So it's telling us the United States is one of the kingdoms that will help bring us into the end times events, into the apocalypse, and of course everything that's already been laid out because it's already happened in the great book of Revelation in the New Testament. So that's very scary. Why are they putting this out in our faces? It's very, very clear what the intention is here. And of course there's a lot of symbology with this. In addition to that, to continue focusing on the cult, notice the moon. Notice the crescent moon. It's not a full moon, it's a crescent moon, which is also very occultist, very much referencing demons and Satan and evil. I could spend an entire episode telling you about the occult nature of a crescent moon. So notice it's a crescent moon, and then there's some kind of device or technology going to the moon. So what does that mean? Have we not been to the moon? Are we going back to the moon? Is this some kind of ancient technology that's been discovered that they're now going to release to the public that is going to the moon? And of course, the moon references the occult. It references Jupiter, the god of Jupiter, Saturn, and also paganism in general. So the moon is very much a witchcraft type reference and symbol as well. Below that, we have a volcano, which appears they might be signaling to us that it might erupt in the future. There's some debate on which volcano this is. I've heard some people say it's Mount Fuji over in Japan. I've had others say it's Mount Rainier, I believe, on the Cascadian zone of the Pacific Northwest, near and around Seattle. There could be speculation that maybe it's another volcano. So here's the question. Will a volcano erupt in 2019? We've seen strange weather events with hurricanes, with flooding, with volcanic eruptions, all these kinds of things that have been happening, earthquakes all around the world, fires in the western United States, all over the United States really. We saw this in Malibu just a couple of weeks ago, and now it looks like they're predicting to us that there's going to be some kind of major weather event in regards to volcanic activity in the not too distant future. Now let's move to the left of Donald Trump, the funny little picture of Donald Trump. That is the New Horizon space satellite. Okay, so why are they referencing that versus other satellites? At first I thought it was like a turret gun or some kind of new weaponry or something, which maybe it is that, but it actually says below it in the reverse mirror script, New Horizons. So here's a product of NASA that is discovering new technology, new planets, potentially extraterrestrial life out in outer space. And all this is sounding crazy as I say it. Again, I didn't make this cover. They did. I'm just interpreting the symbolism here that is obviously here, right in my face. This is what it's telling me, looking at it at a keen eye. So you've got that image there. Below that, you have an elephant, and its tusks are pointing upward as if the stock market is rising. So this, I think, is a symbol that India is going to do very well in 2019 and beyond. And there's going to be a lot of economic growth in this particular part of the world. To the right of that, we have the bulldog, which is a symbol of the UK. And of course, he's got the shield on his chest, symbolizing London and the UK. And then to the right of him, it says Brexit. So Brexit is on the brink. Of course, we've seen great protests in other countries like France with the yellow vests. Here recently, there is very much a disruption occurring worldwide against the elites, the 0.001% that control all the wealth, all the power, and those that are no longer middle class but are lower class as a result of the engineered financial bailouts and basically the stealing and robbing of not just the people here in America, but the people all around the world worldwide, that's created this wealth gap discrepancy where people like the top 10 men worldwide control 99.99999% of all the wealth worldwide. Whether or not this is Bill Gates, or it's Warren Buffett, or it's the too big to fail bankster elite that, of course, engineered the rise in stocks and global real estate and then profited on the collapse with engineered trillion-dollar bailouts that only bailed out the billionaires. So we have that reference as well. Let's move below the moon and the device going back to the moon. You can see there facial recognition is going to become a big part of our lives. Of course, this is what Facebook has been working on for years. This is what their technology does. It's why you upload photos so that they can data mine it, sell it to advertisers. And then, of course, it's also facial recognition technology and software that they're using to data mine all of us. I saw this in the streets of Singapore when I would cross a street. It would go, Christopher Green, my age, references, my social credit score. This has already been rolled out in China, and it's already implicitly been rolled out in the United States of America. Now, below that, we have Pinocchio. I can't decide who that is. Maybe it's just Pinocchio. To me, I was like, is that Duterte? Is it a global leader? Is it the North Korean leader? No, it doesn't really look like him. Someone pointed out his eye. It doesn't look like the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un. He's not plump enough. So here we have Pinocchio. To me, that symbolizes that there could be a giant false flag to occur that will pull the wool over the sheep's eyes, so to speak, in 2019, that will lead us into the apocalyptic event, the four horsemen of Revelation that will bring upon, as we're in now, the end times, in a World War III type scenario. Again, we will all be deceived. This is what the whole idea of the Antichrist is, and Satan, and one world government, and a one world leader taking over. So maybe this is the one world leader here, or it's the idea of it, Pinocchio, and the giant lie that will be espoused and sold to the general public, and also will be falsely believed by the masses in 2019 and beyond. The gentleman below that, I'm not sure who that is. Is it Charles Darwin? Is it a Civil War figure? I don't really know. I couldn't get a reference on that. Maybe you could help me out with that. I don't know who that is. So I didn't really have too many great ideas on that. Above the Vitruvian Man and his digital goggles, again, keep the people pacified, dumbed down so they don't really know what's going on, and they're not paying attention. We've got the stork carrying a baby with a barcode, which symbolizes that they're cooling the population, they're dumbing us down, and all the new babies are now engineered, genetically engineered. They're already doing this with vaccinations, etc., but now we've got designer babies. Pick out the eye color, how tall they're going to be, what they're going to look like, their skin color, how smart they're going to be, etc., how athletic they're going to be, how good looking they're going to be. So basically the elites are they're playing God now, creating designer babies, and we now all have a barcode on all of us, which we already do. I mean, social security numbers are already a barcode. We already live in the mark of the beast, so to speak. You can't get a job. You can't pay taxes without a social security number. When you're born, they give you a social security number. I mean, we're already tagged as cattle, whether or not we realize it or not. But it's now being taken to the next level with all this genetic modification, CRISPR. I encourage you to look into it, CRISPR. If you look into this, it'll tell you about how they split genes. I'm not a biologist or a geneticist. I don't work in that field, but I know CRISPR is a new technology where they're altering the DNA of the human population, which is why your data is the most important thing that you should own. I talk about that all the time. I preach about that. And they're putting it right in our faces that this is what they're doing. Gandhi is to my left of the stork. I don't know why they put him there. He's kind of a reference, a spiritual reference, a leader. I'm not going to equate him to like Jesus or anything like that, but you've got a spiritual leader out of India who fought British rule through non-violence. I don't know why he's there. Maybe you guys kind of extrapolate that on for me. I'd be curious to see what you think. We also have the electric vehicle. Of course, there's a big push with that new technology. For example, Tesla's never turned a profit. They get billions and billions of dollars of subsidies from the federal government every year. General Motors has shut down their plants pretty much worldwide. They're just going to focus on electric vehicles going forward. And so there's a big push for that new technology worldwide. Let's keep moving on. Let's go to the bottom. There is, to the left, some people miss this, there is like a reptile type, I don't know if it's a mammal, I don't know exactly what it is. I looked this up last night and I can't remember what it is, but basically I think it's referencing that a lot of the world and these animals are going extinct. Okay, so that they're just through, if you want to call it global warming, I don't agree with that, or just human influence in general. There's the extinction of the old world, really of old man, I think is almost what it's referencing, as they merge us digitally with machines and we all become dystopian robots, detached from God, detached from the truth. And of course, that is the very definition of hell, willful separation from Jesus Christ and God, the Heavenly Father, which is exactly what they want and is exactly what they're pushing forward with the New World Order agenda. Strangely, Angelina Jolie is the Mona Lisa almost painting, who has an article in this issue of The Economist. I think that's why they put her there. She's also a propaganda piece who works for the CIA. A lot of Hollywood is. They work for the CIA. This has come out in documents with other Hollywood historical figures in years past. It's the same today. A lot of Hollywood works in a deceptive manner for Central Intelligence, the NSA, other organizations, intelligence agencies, etc. And she's been very well known for making a push for immigrants and also the horrors that are going on in the Middle East, etc., and basically creating a false narrative to get the general people behind whatever cause the United States government wants us behind at any time, usually involving some kind of preeminent invasion of a foreign country that had nothing to do with another event, like September 11th, 2001. So we have her there as well. To the left, or to my right of Vitruvian Man, we've got a couple ballot boxes. One of them looks like a South African flag. I can't tell what the other box is, but I guess there's going to be critical key elections and votes coming with all of these issues. We see with Donald Trump, an outsider, a lot of outsiders are being elected right now, disruptors, whether or not it's Trump or it's the new Brazilian president or it's others. And then we see that in juxtaposition to elitist leaders like Emmanuel Macron, the mark, who sold himself, the mark of the beast, who sold himself as a man of the people, but is really just a man of the elites. And hence now we have the yellow vest protests and the water cannons in the streets, and basically that entire part of the world burning to the ground. The lady to the bottom right, at least from my perspective, with the quill ink pen, I don't know who that is. Did anybody know what the reference is to that? I don't really understand that. I wasn't able to find any information on that. So I'm just looking at the cover here. In closing, in conclusion, I want to hear what you guys think. There was a lot here. I actually spent an hour or two looking at this last night because I realized how much hidden messaging there actually was. Again, there's other videos on this. I think people have done a pretty good job, but I wanted to give my perspective as well because I think there was things that people were missing. Also notice the geographical nature of where the people and the images are sitting on the globe itself, on the physical map. So, for example, the Vitruvian Man's right hand with the DNA helix strand holding the marijuana plant is over the East Coast United States. And so they've positioned in these areas where these events are kind of taking place. Also, where Africa is, the line kind of gets redrawn off the map where the lady with the quill pen is. So maybe they're going to rewrite borders. I'm reading an interesting book right now about geography and how this affects geopolitics. So maybe through war and devastation, the apocalyptic horsemen, of course, the United States and other nations, maybe Israel, that are ushering in and bringing in the New World Order, and also as we are living through the end times and this revelation type period, will be writing with their quill pen new borders as a result of the destruction, warfare, and what I believe to be something that's already started, World War III. As we see Donald Trump, in closing, face off with the smug, almost angry panda bear, the Chinese premier, with over a population, I think, of 1.4 billion people slammed in places like Beijing on the eastern side of China versus 300 million people here in the United States. As they rise, and China becomes the top dog in the world, behind, and Putin sitting behind him, and the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Okay, go to that video, The Economist 2019, Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse and Illuminati Symbols. Quite interesting. Also, that last statement about China, it's interesting how the countries are lining up now with Venezuela, now that a new president has stated that he's in control, while Maduro, the other guy who's bringing that country to its knees with socialism, says he is. So we have China, Russia, Mexico, and a number of other countries, China and Russia being the important ones, lining up with Maduro and the socialist, while America supports Canada and a number of other South and Central American countries supporting the new president. So violence on the horizon in Venezuela, and this is a good indication of how the countries are lining up for that final World War III event, as predicted in the 2019 cover of The Economist. Now, since they predicted something in 1988 that came true, why should you doubt this? And if you don't know about the signs and symbols, please read up on some of these things. We've been doing it for years on this show. And that's the way the occult, the Vatican, Jesuit connection, that's the way they communicate. And it's quite interesting. I always say, look at Trump when he always gives an interview from the waist when he's sitting down in a chair. He will always give the inverted pyramid signal with his hands. Pretty interesting. Does it all the time. And he's telling his supposed foes on the other side of the aisle, don't worry, folks. We all work together. And we will bring about a new world order where countries have no borders, where countries basically do not exist any longer, and as the gentleman in this video said, it's on the horizon, and they're telling you in plain sight on that Economist Magazine cover. See you Monday on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.